Hello everybody and welcome to this course about Supabase. I'm really excited to introduce you to my favorite product of the year because it's been a long time that I was waiting for a product that will do the same as Firebase but with Postgres and so SQL. Supabase, it's an open source alternative to Firebase, and as a Firebase user since many years, I was waiting for that since a long time. With Supabase, what you can do basically is to create tables, but also you can have an authentication system, a storage system, and everything that is provided by Postgres. On one click, you can create a backend as a service, and that's really great for people who want to create projects really fast. But also with Supabase, you can create production project because Supabase is built on top of Postgres. So you have all the benefits of Postgres and also you have all the benefits of a real backend because you can use also the real time and you can use, for instance, the edge function. So in this complete course, I'm going to teach you how to deal with Supabase to create a backend on one click and to launch your project right away or to choose the best alternative for your clients, for instance, or for your startup. Here is the program of our course. First, we are going to learn how to create a project. So how to sign in, sign up, how to plug it to your application, for instance. Then we are going to look at the tables because Supabase is built on top of Postgres, so of course we can create tables and everything that is around it. Policies, row-level security, etc., etc. So there is also a chapter on row-level security to understand what is it exactly and how to use it. There is a chapter also on authentication, how to deal with authentication because Supabase has a full system to deal with authentication, and with the SDK it's so fast to install. We will talk also about user management, recover password, email templates. And email templates, this is something that I love about Supabase. When a user is going to sign in or sign up, he will receive an email automatically from Supabase. You don't have to do it. And you can work also on the templates of those emails. We will enter in the real subject of using a backend, so we will talk about read, insert, delete or update elements, rows in your tables, but also in storage, for instance. We will talk about subscriptions, we will talk about relation between tables because it's SQL, so we can do relation with Supabase. We will talk about functions, triggers, schema, storage, logs, because it's a backend, of course, we want to know if something went wrong, we will want to have some feedback and we're going to use for that the logs. We will talk about extensions, real-time, edge functions, and we will see that edge functions are really useful. And finally, we will talk about webhooks, which is really cool to use because, for instance, every time you're going to add some data to a table, you want to perform an action, we can do that with webhooks. It was an example, we can do way more, but we are going to see all of these together. So if you are ready to create a project with Supabase right now and to learn everything you need to know to create a backend as a service in some minutes, let's go, let's work together on that. Welcome to this new course about Supabase. I'm really excited to introduce you to my favorite product of the year. Why? Because actually Supabase is a backend as a service on one click, and it really helps you to bootstrap your application really fast. So what is Supabase? As I said, it's a backend as a service. It means that you can create a project on the platform and actually you can have an authentication system that helps you to deal with all the providers such as Google, LinkedIn, GitHub, whatever. And you can actually help on your front-end application to log in through those providers. But also there is a database, and this database is running on Postgres. And you can create table, make relationships, triggers, everything that is around Postgres because Supabase has been built on Postgres. So they are really big fans of Postgres, and everything that is available under Postgres is available on Supabase. But also with Supabase, you can have edge functions that helps you to run some application on the backend side, such as a Dino server, for instance. You can have real-time subscriptions also. Of course, there is storage. And one of the features that I like the most is that you have a documentation that generates, depending on your table, all the code that you need for your SDK on the front-end side. But we are going to see all of this in this long course about Supabase, and I really hope you're going to enjoy. So basically, when we arrive on the website of Supabase, we have some explanation of what is Supabase. You have some testimonies and etc. You got some code, and we clearly see that it's really easy to implement really fast because you just have to install the SDK of Supabase, use the create client, and then you can use it. And there's a lot of other things, but what we want to do, we want to create a new project right away. We want to have our backend as a service under Supabase. So to start, it's totally free, okay? It's free and up to 500 megabytes of database and 1 giga of file storage. So we have a big size that is available on us on the hard drive to build a project, okay? So to bootstrap a startup, it is really ideal. That's the best. You have also 2 gigabytes of bandwidth, etc., etc., 50,000 monthly active user, etc., etc. If you want to go pro, on Pro you have a bigger database, of course, and you have more services for only $25 per month. Honestly, for this price, this is the best deal ever you can have because you can have almost unlimited, 2 million head function invocation, 100,000 monthly active users, and this is really big, etc., etc. So to start, Supabase is free. So what we're going to do, we are going to click here on the top on Start Your Project, and we are going to create immediately our project. So when you click on Sign Up and you arrive on Get Started, there is 2 possibilities. You can either log in with GitHub, so it will be related to your GitHub instance. Otherwise, you can add your email and password. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to connect with an email and a password to have a fresh instance on Supabase. Once we are logged in, we arrive on a dashboard. And on this dashboard, you can find the project, but also the organization. So you can have several projects. On the free plan, you are supposed to have maximum 2 projects. And one project contains a whole project of Supabase with everything inside. So the authentication, the database, the storage, etc., etc. You can have also several organizations, and on those organizations, of course, we understand that we can have several projects. Also, you have everything that is related to your account, the preference, the access token. You can log out, you get the API reference also. But we are not going to wait that much. We are going to click on New Project because we are here to create a new project. And this is where we are going to set up everything. So I arrived here on this pop-up, create a new project, and here I can select my organization. Also, what I can do is to put the name of this project. So I can put my new Supabase project, okay? And I'm supposed to have a database password, okay? So basically, this password should be very strong because it's supposed to be for the database. This is why they provide to you here a button, generate a password that you can use. And what I propose you to do is to copy paste this password somewhere, okay? So you got to keep this password. It's really, really important. Also, there is the region. So here we got to create actually an instance. And on this instance, we have several regions, several servers that we can check. I'm going to stay on North Virginia. And down there, you have the pricing plan. And that's what we saw before. You can choose the Pro or you can stay on the free. So for this demonstration, I'm going to take a free plan. Even if on my own instance, I got a Pro plan. Here we can work with a free plan to show what is exactly Supabase. And there we go, my project has been created. So we see here that it's setting up the project on the server. Once it will be done, we will get access to all the features of Supabase that are here on the left. So we can already see that we have a table editor. So we will see that just after. The SQL editor, so there is an SQL editor there, a database, an authentication system, the storage, the edge functions, the reports, the logs, the API docs. And down there we got the project settings. Here on this page, what we've got a link directly to documentation there. So if I open the documentation here, I arrive on everything that is related to Supabase and how to use it. And this doc, guys, is brand new thanks to the Supabase team. It's a really nice doc and it's really efficient at the same time. So you got guides if you want to integrate Supabase with React, Next.js, Flutter, because Supabase works a lot with Flutter, Vue, Solid.js, SvelteKit, etc., etc. You got also documentation on database, auth, storage, real-time. So Supabase thought about everything. They are making a product for people who don't want necessarily to create a backend or work on it, on just having the skills to do it. So they designed and they wrote a very nice documentation that goes straight to the point. So if you want to have more information next to my courses, you can click, for instance, on here on database. And down there, you got a lot of examples of the tables that we are going to see after on how to use the database. If you want to go to auth, it's exactly the same. You even have videos. And here there is the CTO, Ant Wilson, that is talking to you about auth. Here we see that we can log in with email, magic link, phone, social login, etc., etc. Okay? There is a lot of documentation like this. We can come back to it later. And there we go. Back on the project, we see that we have an analytics part on the database request, on the authentication, storage, and stuff. So there is also inside the product an analytics part that is very interesting to have an overview every day on your product, if it is working or not, etc., etc. If you are using different client libraries, you also have guides about it on JavaScript, Python, or Flutter, of course. Everything here is really clear to handle. And if I go on table editor, we can see here that we can create tables. That's what we're going to see in the next lesson. There is an SQL editor, but of course, Supabase know that not everybody knows how to work with SQL. So they build a very smart system for me. That is a script system that helps you to actually create a script with a starter, actually. This is the starters that you can use if you want to have a script on show extensions, an incremental field value, to add a column, of course. And there is even a user management starter that is very useful and that maybe most of you will use, because if you don't know Postgres and if you don't know how to write SQL, you will maybe have some trouble to deal with creating a user management system. You can just click on this and there we go. It creates for you in the SQL editor all the commands to create your tables profile. And also it's creating with the row level security, and we are going to come back on this later. It's creating all the policies that are locking the access of your database. If you want that your tables are not public, you can use policies that are there. Otherwise, if you want them to be available for people that are authenticated, everything has been thought to make your life easier. Okay. Also, you get the database here tab when you can access tables, triggers, function, extensions, etc., etc. You got the authentication system that we are going to see also with all the providers. And look, with Supabase, you can offer to your clients to log in with Bitbucket, Discord, Facebook, GitLab. There's a lot of options there. There are also email templatings that helps you to deal with somebody is going to sign up, or if you are going to invite a user, because we can invite people. A magic link that helps us to log in without a password. That is amazing. The change email address, the reset password. You can go to storage, and on storage here, it's all about the assets, image, documents, whatever. And there is also the edge functions. There is the reports, because you can create reports about your backend. You got the logs, and of course the logs for an API, it's really important. And finally, you got the API documentation that here it is going to generate for you all the code related to your tables. You understood Supabase is a complete product that is amazing. I could talk during hours about it. It will help us to bootstrap a product. This backend as a service will save us a lot of time. Supabase is working with Postgres, and with Postgres we can create databases. Those databases are made with tables. So we are going to create now a table, and I'm going to explain to you everything you have to know about tables. So here I can click on Table Editor here on the left, and when I arrive there is no table yet. Of course, because we didn't create any table. So we are going to click on Create a new table, but before, if you look on the left, we can see that we got a first option, which is the schema. And if we look at it, we see that we have different schema. So for now, we are going to stay on the schema public, and I will come back later to explain to you what are schemas. So you can create as much table as you want, and all those tables will be displayed here on the left. A table, what is this? Well, actually, a table, it's a simple table with rows and columns, and they are going to define some kind of business logic or some kind of data. It will define actually the model of what you want to create. So we need to create tables to store our data. So I'm going to click on New Table, and we see here that I got this form that is opening on the right. And here I can start to create my new table under the public schema. So first I gotta give a name, and this name I suggest you to write it in snake case. It's really important. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm going to create several tables with several models. And the first table that I'm going to create is a table clients. Okay, I want to store clients. And on the description I can put a table to store my clients. All right. After that, we have the enable row level security that is checked, and it's written recommended. So enable row security, we will have a full listen on it. It is restricting the access to your table by enabling this mode. So basically, with the row level security, your table, your database will not be accessible until you will write policies on Postgres. So we will need later to write policies to make our table accessible. So we are going to let that check. We are not going to enable real-time. The enable real-time option is to broadcast the changes on the table. And we are going to start right away by creating the model of our clients. So we can see here that we've got a little editor, and we've got columns with name, type, default value, and primary. And also we've got this cross to just remove this element. And we've got options here. When we click on it, we see that we got extra options. Here, this is the model of your data, all right? So you got to create columns to define the model of clients. Also, what you can do here, we see that we got an option to import the data via spreadsheet. All right, so let's create the model of our clients. There is an ID here, and we can see also that it's snake case convention. And what I can do is I can change, if you want, the name, and later we'll add new columns. Here I see that I got a little button, and when I click on it, we see that it's to add a foreign key for ID. So we will also look at this later. What we want to do is to create the model for now. So there is a type, and when I click on type, we can see that Supabase is providing to me all the Postgres data type that I can add to my specific row. So here it's ID. So we can see that I got integers, floats, numeric, JSON, text, UUID, date, and timestamps, and of course, booleans. So here I'm going to choose UUID. And if I go on the official documentation of Postgres on postgresql.org, I can find that Postgres is providing to me functions that are generating different kind of UUID. And here we can find the function that is integrated to Supabase, the UUID generate v4 that generate a version 4 UUID, which is derived entirely from random numbers. So in Postgres and by extension in Supabase, we've got functions that help us to trigger some generations or some actions. So here I'm going to click here, and it's going to be the primary key. So for those who don't know Postgres, the primary key, this is the key that is going to help us to index our element and to find it through the Postgres engine. All right, so our client will get an ID. There will be also a created at, which is a timestamp, and here we can find again the function now. So now it's again a function provided by Postgres to give us the current date and time. All right. However, this client will have more than this. And I would like to add actually here a new column, and it will be an email column. And I don't get any type email here, so what I can put is text. Okay, I want to add a text. And there we go. However, the thing is that I want that on my database client, every client here should have an email. If there is no email, I want to prevent to enter a client. I don't want to have a client that is generated without an email, because I cannot identify him only with the ID. I would like to identify him with the email. So what I can do is to click here, and when I click here, we see that I got these extra options open, and I got the option is nullable. So when I check this, I allow that email would be null on insert. And that's not what I want. So I'm going to remove it. And also, I want that this email would be unique. Because on my list of clients, I don't want to have different clients with the same email. I would like to prevent this. I can do it. So if I want to add a client without an email, I will get an error. And if I want to add a client that is already in my list, I will have an error also. So I'm going to click on this. There we go. I got an ID, a created at, and an email. All right. So let's say that we are going to stay on this for now. I'm going to click on save. I'm going to save the tables client. It's going to add the 3 columns to the client's table. And now, there we go. Our table clients is good to go. So we are ready to use it. And we see that it takes the form actually exactly like a spreadsheet. So we got columns and we can insert elements. And also what we got here, we see that we got a plus. If we want to add a new column to our model, it's of course possible. Congratulations, you got your first table clients. We've got several options. We see that we got refresh, which is very useful because we don't want to refresh all the browser. We can refresh just the table. We can then filter, sort the client. So let's imagine we will have thousands of clients. We can do it right away on Supabase. And this is something that I like. We can talk about it for a second. This is something that I like a lot with Supabase, is that it's visual. So when you are building a company and once you have a backend, you must have a back office for your company, such as for the marketing department, for the clients, everything that is related actually to non-technical departments. Well, with Supabase, your marketing department can come here and look at the data when they need something, instead of requesting all the time actually the backend developer to have the state of the data. So it's very useful. You don't have to code it. It's right away there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to click on insert, and here we see that we get 2 options, insert row and insert column. So insert column, it's exactly the same as this plus there. So I'm going to click on insert row, and there we go. I got a new form, and here we see that I can insert a client. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on save right away. I'm not going to fulfill anything. And what's going to happen, of course, is that I'm going to have my first error on Supabase. Violates not null constraint. Remember, email of clients cannot be null. So I have to enter a value. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to enter a value. So it's going to be codewithguillaume@gmail.com. There we go. And on the UUID, I don't need to put anything. The function is going to generate it for me, as well as for the created at. And there we go. I got my first entry inside my client's table. Let's say that I'm going to add a new row, and this time it's going to be Ant Wilson at superbase.com. I'm going to save. There we go. I got another one. So as you see, I can later consult here my my data and change it right away, because under this I'm totally super admin, so I can change everything. And here I forgot to put one column. So I can click here and add a new column, and this one is going to be is active, and the description will be defines if client is active. Okay, I can add a foreign key relation. We're going to do it later. And as a type, I'm going to put Boolean. All right, and it cannot be null, and by default is going to be on true. What's going to happen here, and when I'm going to click on save, is that it's going to add, okay, the column is active and put the default value to all the members. All right, good. Now let's say that I'm going to try to add a new client, but with the same email. I'm going to click here. I'm going to type this, and when I click on save, I got another error, which is totally legit. It violates the unique constraint client email key because Andrew is already existing inside my database. Okay, we've got the table clients. Now let's create a new table. And this one is going to be a table orders by the clients, actually. There we go. We enable row level security. We do exactly the same. I'm going to use UUID, then I'm going to use the generated at. And here, what I'm going to do, I want to add a client ID for the future. And this one is going to be UUID also. And here I'm not going to put the generator because I want to fulfill by an existing client ID. So here I'm going to put that it's not nullable because I don't want my orders to have an empty client ID. So I'm going to save this ID created at client ID. Let's say that we're gonna have some kind of price, and there what I can put is just let's say a numeric. Okay, for now, let's say a numeric. We allow it to be null for the moment. And what I can have also with this as an order is client ID, price. We can say a lot of other stuff like such address, and here what I can put is actually a text. Okay, here we define the address because it's supposed to be related to the client, but maybe the client will put a different address. So if we store the address in the client, we will have trouble later. We want to relate the address to an order. Okay, so address, and let's put zip code. Okay, we got the zip code, and again, I'm going to put the text. Of course, I could put varchar, the variable length character string, but here I'm just going to put this zip code and city, and I'm going to put this, let's say text, and there we go. So we've got client ID, and we need, of course, we need the name because if we don't get any name for the order, it will be terrible. So created at client ID, price, address, zip code, order. There we go. So I'm going to click on save. So now I'm not using any SDK with any app. So what I need to do is to take an existing client ID. So let's say that I'm going to take mine. So here I got an ID, a UUID. I'm going to save. And to create my order, I need a UUID. So I'm going to insert a row, and here I'm going to put as an ID this one. There we go. Then as a price, I'm going to put, let's say, $20. There we go. The address, I'm going to say 123 Superbase Road. There we go. As the zip code A890, there we go, city Superbase, and the name is going to be Code with Guillaume, and I can put anything I want here. I'm going to save, and there we go. I got my first order with my clients that I can use for now. So you see, we can create tables really fast. We can have as much table. I just created those two tables as an example, but just imagine that later you will have a lot of tables, and we will succeed later to create relations between the tables to actually deal with fetching the data at once and not fetching the clients, then the order, etc., etc. But we are going to see this after, because right now our table is not active because we didn't edit the RLS policies, the row level security policies. It's time for us to talk about row level security, the security feature offered by Postgres to allow the usage or the access of our database. Essentially, it means that the user has to configure all the access by writing security policies to all the tables that are created, to all the rows of our tables. For example, an administrator can create a policy to allow access to the table to everybody, but to restrict actually to write on this table or to delete some elements. On the official documentation of PostgreSQL, we have more information about row security policies. And I'm not going to read the whole article. You can find it on postgresql.org. However, we have some interesting text here that we can read together. In addition to the SQL standard privilege system available through Grant, tables can have row security policies that restrict, on a per-user basis, which rows can be returned by normal queries by inserted, updated, or deleted by data modification commands. This feature is also known as row-level security. By default, and this is the case on the table that we created, tables do not have any policies. So let's get back to our tables there, and we can click here on clients, for instance, and we can click here on orders. So right now we've got one order. And of course, those orders, they could not be fetched by a user that is not authenticated, and it could not be fetched by somebody else than the user that wants to fetch it. So to write my first row level policy, what I can do is either to click here on no active RLS policies, either going here on authentication and go on policies. And here we got the list of the tables, and we've got the option concerning row level security. Again, if you want to have more information, you can either click here on the row level security button that we have here. What is row level security? And you got more explanation here on the official documentation of Supabase. Here we've got the clients, we've got the orders. Okay, so let's create a new policy, because for now, we want to restrict the access. So when you click on new policy, you can do two things. You can use actually the templates provided by Supabase, and this is very useful for the people who don't know anything about SQL. Or you can click on full customization to create a policy from scratch. So I'm going to click on this at first. And here we see that we have a form again, and we can enter the policy's name. We can click here on select, insert, update, delete all to select actually which is the operation that you want to do. And you can also target the roles. So we can see here, and we discover now that in Supabase, every user can have a role that we can define. Okay, so here we've got Anon. So Anon, we understand it's for anybody actually. Authenticated, it will be for people authenticated through the authentication system. And after you got other roles, etc., etc. And down there, you can provide a SQL condition expression that returns the Boolean. All right, so if you know SQL, it will be very easy for you to create your policy through here. But if you click here on View Template, okay, there you can have 4 templates for now on creating policies. So for the, actually, we are looking right now on the clients. And on the template, we see that here we've got one template that says enable read access to everyone. So here we got the SQL template that gives this policy, and it will enable the read access to everyone. It says create policy, policy name. So here you're supposed to have the name of your policy, which will be actually enable read access to everyone. On public, which is the schema. Actually, we are on the schema public, and we created our tables on the schema public. dot clients, which is the name of the table, for select using with the condition true, which means that anybody is able to select, so to read, every element of clients. So if you want to do that, you click on use this template and you will actually release your table clients to the read of anybody. It's like the anon condition. That's something we don't want to do on the clients. Then we have enable insert access for authenticated user only. So here we've got another SQL query, and we can see that this policy gives insert access to your table to all authenticated user only. So it will create the policy again on the table clients for insert to authenticated, which is the role, okay, with check true. So we want to use this one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on use this template, and suddenly I'm getting back to the form of the full customization, and it's totally fulfilled. And we can see here, okay, we can see that actually what's happening is that it has fulfilled the old form with the insert authenticated role with a condition which is true. So I'm going to click on review. Finally, I'm reviewing the policy to be created on publics.clients. And there we go. I got my policy. And if I click on save policy, here we see that I got one policy on client which concerns insert on authenticated. So right now, you can insert clients only if you are authenticated. All right, we want to do the same with order. So what I can do is to click on here on get started, and I can do exactly the same because it's a template. So now on order, it will be only for people authenticated. Okay. However, this is a problem what I'm doing now, because I'm not sure that I want to create orders directly here like this way. The thing is that I would like to have later a trigger that will create an order automatically. For this course, I'm just going to click on review and save this policy because I just want to show you the example on how to add an order directly this way from the front end. But normally I wouldn't do this way. I would use a trigger to do it. There we go. So now we've got the clients, we've got the order, and we've got our two policies. And in the future, as much tables you will have to write all the time the policies concerning those tables. And you have to be really careful on that, guys, because you have to really deal with the fact that sometimes if you do mistakes, your tables could be public, and you don't want that. So let's pretend that now I want to give access to everybody. I want to give access to everybody to my clients. So if I do it, okay, now anybody that could connect to the database would have to select publicly all the clients. He will be able to read all the clients. However, this is something that I don't want to have. So I want to delete, and I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click on delete. You can, of course, delete your policies. That's really, really important. So that's good. But the thing is that I don't want that everybody could read the clients. I just want some people to do it. So I'm going to click again. And of course, I didn't tell you, but also what you have to do is to deal with the update and the delete access to the element. So here I'm supposed to add clients through an application. So I want to update them. Maybe I will have a button to click and click on modify exactly like I did before. So if I click here, I should add this condition. And we can see that on the auth GWT, sorry, I got this condition which is using expression. That's so cool. That's what I want to do. I want to update with only the email actually that is related to the current actually element. So we enable the update for users based on email. Okay, I'm going to save this and I'm going to add this policy. And of course, you can add as much policies as you want. I'm going to continue, and I want also to delete. Actually the clients that I can have. And here we see that we got something else. We got this condition, auth UID is equal to user underscore ID. So I'm going to keep this using this expression there, and I'm going to review and save the policy. And here I got a problem because I don't get actually the colon user ID on my clients. So I'm going to close this, I'm going to get back. I'm going to go on the table editor on clients. And here, as I see, I don't get user ID. And that is a problem that I didn't solve at first, is that many users will add their clients in the clients database, but they are not related to a specific user ID. So what I can do here is to add actually a colon user ID. And this user ID will be actually the owner's ID of the client. Okay. So what I can do there is to say it's going to be a UUID. And what is going to be this user ID? Well, I think it's going to be the user ID of the authenticated user. So I'm going to save this. I don't allow nullable, and I don't allow is unique because I can have several clients. I'm going to save that. And suddenly I have a problem because I'm supposed to have at least, one user ID in the column. And we see that right now it's null for a lot of them. So for now, I'm clicking on allow nullable and it's going to work. And there we go. But what I should do is to fulfill the right user ID of those two clients, which would be mine. However, I don't have for now. So I'm just going to delete those two rows and I'm going to just come back after. And when I will add a new client, I would need this user ID. To change my table, I can go on database, and on tables, I go to clients. Okay, so here I get clients. I can click here on 5 columns, and I got my user ID there, and I'm going to click here, and this time I'm going to remove allow nullable because in the future, I really want this user ID. Okay, so I got my user ID, and now I can come back to write my policy. Back in the policy, I'm going to click here, new policy. And what I want to do actually is to go here, and the access that I had before, it's this delete template. So I'm going to use it, but I'm not going to use it as delete. I'm going to use it actually to select. Enable select for user based on user ID. And actually here it's going to be authenticated, sorry. Every time I'm going to select clients from the table client, it has to be related with my user ID. What does it mean? It means simply that our table clients will be full of different clients coming from you, from me, from anybody. But it's not possible that I can fetch your clients. We want that you can fetch only your clients, and me, I'm fetching only my clients. So what we do, we enable the select for clients, so it's not users, based on user ID. So I'm going to select the clients only on my user ID, on authenticated, and this auth.uid function will come actually from the authenticated session that we will have. And then I'm going to click on save policy. And there we go. I got everything that I need for clients. I should do exactly the same for others, but I think you understood by this quick exercise that you have to work on row-level security if you want to secure your database, if you want to secure your Supabase instance, and especially on tables where you don't want the public to get access on. Later, we will see that if you get an API, you can have a certain role to get all the access to all databases, because here in this case, we don't want our user to get access and to create orders. We would like to have a trigger or an API to do it. The row-level security help the administrator to create policies to secure your Supabase database. It is time for us now to look at authentication with Supabase. Right now, we've got two tables, clients and orders, and we've got row-level security policies written. However, later in our application, we would like to have some kind of authentication system that allows us to log in or log out from our session? Well, with Supabase, it's totally possible to create an authentication system. So when you click here on authentication, you arrive on this dashboard and on this table. And here we see that we've got a list of users with email, phone, provider, created, last sign-in, user ID. All right. So here our table is totally empty. Up there, we've got reload button and also invite. And if I click on invite here, I have a pop-up, and this pop-up is showing to me an input with a user email. So if I'm putting Guillaume88, for instance, at yopmail.com, and I click on invite user, Supabase will send an email to invite this user to join. And while this user will click on the button to join, what he will get is just here a status of waiting for verification. So as we can see, the user here has been created. So we don't need actually in Supabase to create a table user here. I mean, you could do it for further information about the user, and there is a template actually called user management, a SQL script template that is creating a profile data table to put more information. But basically, at first, Supabase is providing to us this list of users. So right now, we should go on this email and look at what Supabase sent to us. All right, I'm on the email, and here we can see that I have an invitation and I have a button that is click the invite. However, it says that I need to actually redirect to a localhost 3000 to validate my user. That's what we're going to do. Actually, we will use a template, a view application, to display our authentication system. So the user will receive this email, he will click there, and it will be redirected to localhost 3000. However, when it will be on production, we will have to change this URL, because right now we would like that this email goes to the production URL, not localhost. Well, we can do it here by clicking on URL configuration. So you got the seat URL redirection, of course, but you got here the seat URL that will be provided directly into the email. Now, Supabase gives us the opportunity to edit the email template on several cases. And if we click here on invite user, we can see that we've got the email template down there. We've got several other options. However, I will come back to this later on another lesson. On our application, we will give the possibility to log in with your email. And here on providers, we can see that we've got the email provided. However, we got several other options that allows us to give the possibility to the user to log in with other providers, such as Google. So when I click on Google, we can see here that I have to provide a client ID and a client secret, and I can click up there on Google Enable. I'm not going to show you how to connect with all those providers, but basically you have to go on the documentation of every of them and create an app on the developer side to get the keys relative to the connection by those providers. So right now we've got this email, that's good. Now we would like to have a front-end application where we could actually create a connection. I have created for you a Vue.js free application with an authentication system in order to use Supabase. I didn't show you how to code it because on my channel there is already a video to code actually the authentication system from a Vue.js application to Supabase. I also have a video about this with Next.js, you can go check it out. But for now, we are going to work with this application. So right now I got a login here form, and we can see up there that if I change the URL and I go on any other route, I will never move from the main page. So find the repository into the description, and once you've cloned it, you arrive here. And so it's a basic Vue.js free application with Tailwind CSS. We have our Supabase client here that is coming from the Supabase JS SDK. And again, if you want more information about Auth, you can go on Supabase doc on Auth. Everything is explained there to work with authentication. Me, I did the whole work just for you, so it will be faster. Need your credentials to access to your Supabase project. You can go down there on project settings, you click on API, and here you got your key, actually your secret key. And down there, you got the service role that allow you actually to do everything. So be safe, take this one for the user, and the URL is up there. So remember, if I go on here on the API docs, I can go to authentication up there, and I have the keys that I need, or I have the elements that I need to set up the authentication itself, okay? But if I click on user management here, we can see that we've got data Supabase auth.signup, and we can use those elements to log in. So we can see also, which is cool, is that we can log in with magic link via email. This is exactly what we did before. We send an email and there is a magic link. We don't need any password and we can log in just by email. So what I did here is just to bind my values, email and password, to a model. And I have a function login, and it's really simple actually. I'm calling supabase.auth.signup. Supabase, it's the client that I have initiated here. I'm calling it directly from the SDK. I'm calling the SDK with the function signup coming from the documentation with email and password. So I put login here, but actually it's signup. Okay, so I'm going to take sign up instead of login. There we go. I'm going to save, get back, I'm going to update, and I'm going to click on sign in. And for now, nothing is happening. However, I'm going to get back to auth and I'm going to reload up there. And when I click on reload, there we go. I got my user there. Before going on the email, I'm going to open my console, and up there, I'm going to click on confirm your email. Once I click, I'm redirected directly to my application on localhost 3000, and I got here the user. So we can see we got the access token, we got the refresh token, the token type, and we've got down there the full user. And I'm going to reload, and we can see that now my user is not waiting for any verification. So what we did in this lesson? Well, it's basically really simple to understand. We have a front-end application where we installed Supabase, and we are using this SDK of Supabase, and we initiated our client with our credentials, okay? And what we did is just to set up on app.vue or on our main file the authenticated system that says that if there is no user, we just show login. If there is a user, we show all the other pages. And how do we check this user? By using the onAuth state change coming from Supabase SDK that returns a session to us immediately. So we don't need to set up any token. We don't need to do any auth with a JWT token because everything is already done with the Supabase SDK. So we actually win a lot of time. We save a lot of time by using this SDK. We don't need to work on the authentication system. Supabase is dealing with it, and it is recording for us automatically our users. On the example with the authentication, I just show you to sign up. Of course, you would have to create a second form which will be about login. Because if we look at the documentation, and here on the user management side of the documentation on API docs on the left, we can see that we've got a user sign up method that we used, but also we got down there a user login. So of course you would have to use a second form. I didn't do it in the template, but you can do it. Which is really cool with Supabase is that the user management is super easy. You have several ways to sign up or log in your users. And basically, we've got here a quick explanation. Supabase makes it easy to manage your user. Supabase assigns each user a unique ID. You can reference this ID anywhere in your database. This is why we created before on the tables lesson a column with user ID. Because when we will log in as a user, we will get our ID and we will store it into our context, into our session. And we will be able actually to use this user ID to fetch data from the tables. So here we've got the user ID that is available. Okay, so what we can do, we can sign up. We already saw it before. We can log in with email and password. We can log in with Magic Link via email. So this is really my favorite feature of Supabase, is that you don't need to worry about storing encrypted passwords or stuff like this, which is a very bad practice in my opinion. But what you can do here with Supabase is just to log in via email, and it's really easy. So how does it work? Because I get this question all the time. Well, actually, you send a user a passwordless link, which they can use to redeem an access token. After they have clicked on the link, all interaction using Supabase JS client will be performed as that user. And which is cool is that you don't need to code your own system to store your access token inside the cookie or in local storage or whatever. You don't need to do it. The SDK is going to do it for you, which is really, really easy to handle. And at the same time, it's really pleasant because with the on-hot state change method that we are going to see just after again, it's going to work by itself. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to write extra code like all the time, which is boring and you save a lot of time. You can also sign up with phone, and that's a cool feature. You can log in via SMS. You can verify an SMS. And down there, you get also other option to get the user to to get a forgotten password email that we are going to see after. Update your own user up here. However, to get more information about the user, you would not store them here, but in a table, in a third table, like a profile table, for instance. And you've got, of course, the logout there. So if I get back to my application, and if I update, okay, what we can see is that actually every time I'm logged in, my on-hot state change function is sending me to the main, to the main page. So what we would like to do is to sign out. So you can use all those functions to create your own system. You can either propose the option for the user to invite other users down there. Me, what I want to do, I want to log out. So I got this header up there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just create this quick function called logout. So it's going to be, it's going to be sign out, which will be an asynchronous function. And it will be triggered on click on this button, sign out. So here I got sign out. There we go. So I got my Supabase instance, which is there. So I'm going to import Supabase from here at Supabase. There we go. And what I just need to do is to go here and to copy paste this piece of code. So I'm going to move this way. There we go. I'm just going to copy paste this. So I'm going to put here my sign out. I'm not going to handle anything. It's just to show you. I finally implemented the authentication system that I wanted. I have the login form and I got the sign up form. So right now I'm an existing user, so I'm going to click on login. And what's happening there is that I arrive on my application and I'm logged in. Now I'm going to click on sign out up there. And when I click on sign out, there we go, I'm logged out. So I can try to go on any page I want. It's not going to work. You can find this template in the description. We see that with Supabase, we've got a very easy user management system that helps us to implement the authentication that we want. A very common case is to forget your password. And Supabase has a method to help you to recover your password. On the official documentation, we've got forgotten password email here. And we can see that we have this method, reset password for email. We only need the email of your user to recover the password. However, how does it work? Well, it's really easy. You have first to get a recover page. So here on my application, on the View application that you can find in the comments down below, you have here a recover page. And on this recover page, which looks like this, you've got an email to enter and a send method. I'm using this method here, reset password for email, and it's going to trigger actually an email that is going to be sent from Supabase to the current email, okay? Then once logged in, you should direct the user to a new password form. So basically from here, when I'm going to enter my email, and we can look a little bit at the code, what I did here, I just looked at the validate email method that we've got. So if you go on the composable, we've got this method that helps us to check first if it's an email or not. So if we get here and we click, we see that we've got an error. If we don't enter a basic email also, if we try to trigger it with something else, it's not going to work. Here it's going to work, so I'm not going to trigger it. It's going to call reset password for email from the model that we've got down here. So we will receive an email that helps us to recover the password. However, this is not the end of the process. Actually, before, you should create another route, and this route is supposed to be an update route. So basically here, we've got this view which tells us to update our user. And it said here, you should use a update user view below to save the new password. And down there, we've got this solution. We've got this update user method. This update user method should be in another view than your recover view. So I'm just created under the profile folder an update view which does exactly the same as the recover, except that we call the update user method and we pass the email and a new password. All right? So basically it does almost the same. But here, this is the view that will be actually in the link of the email. So we need to change the link of our email. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go on email templates here, and I'm going to go on reset password because this is where I want to lead. And remember me, I got a specific path, and on my application, the specific path is profile/update. If I go on my router here, my update profile, so my update user is on the path profile update. So remember the confirmation URL, and I will make another lesson just after on this. Here leads to localhost 3000. But me, I want to go on localhost 3000/profile/update. So what I need to do is to put here on my reset password /profile/update because the link on my email has to go to this path. Later, we will change the confirmation URL for the production URL. So what I can do here is to use the email of the current user, or if I want, I can click here and click on send password recovery. So I'm just going to copy paste this, and I'm going to use my app, of course, because I created it for this. So I get back here, I'm going to put this, and when I click loading, successfully reset password. So I'm going to go on my email, I'm going to update, and I just received an email and I gotta click here. And when I'm gonna click here, we are going to look at the path. I just open my URL, and as you can see, I've been redirected immediately up there. So what I need to do here is to type the same email as I had. So I had this one, okay, yopmail.com. And under here, I'm going to put my new password, okay. I'm going to click on update, and there we go, I am successfully updated. In short, I have a recover page with the method reset password email. I enter my email, I click on send. It's going to send me an email. But before, I need to go on reset password on the authentication email template tab and put the link where I want to lead my reset password link to. Once it's done, I receive an email. I click on reset password. On reset password, I arrive on the page to update my password. I can click and save my new password. On every application, it's always the same. When we add users, we want to send an email to say hi, welcome. Or when they subscribe, we want to confirm their sign up. Another case, when we recover the password, we want to send an email to recover the password and lead to the front-end application. With Supabase, we can do that inside our dashboard. And we've got the options just here. So right now I'm on the authentication tab where I can deal with all the users that are recorded inside my Supabase application. I can also invite some user if I want with their email. But what I want to deal with is these email templates. And which is really cool with Supabase, it's that here we've got access to the template of 5 different email cases. And we can insert our own HTML. With here we've got our variables that we can use, and of course very often we need the confirmation URL. We've got a pre-written template. And that's really cool because Supabase here, for instance, on confirm sign up, is going to send automatically this email to the person who is going to subscribe to the application. Another case, if we invite the user, we've got some text already written here with the confirmation URL. For the magic link login, it's the same. For the change email address, exactly the same. And for the reset password, also. So what I propose you to do is to try to stylize a little bit the confirm sign up email, the invite user, and we will see how it looks like to actually display a nice email to send to our users. As a mailbox, I'm going to use Yopmail. It's a fake mailbox that helped me to catch some emails. These emails actually are deleted every day, every 24 hours. So this fake mailbox will help me to subscribe to a fake user. So on the confirm sign up here, we can see that I have a template with a variable confirmation URL. And we've got some help here about the variables that you want to grab. Maybe sometimes you will need the token hash, the site URL, so the URL of your site, or maybe, why not, the user's email. Okay, so me, I grabbed a quick template of the email that I'm going to send as a confirm sign up, and I'm going to go down there in the editor, and that's really cool to get this editor. I'm going to copy paste this, and there we go. So what I need to grab is this confirmation URL just here. So I need to confirm the sign up, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change it with here. There we go. So I got my confirmation URL here, and I'm going to remove this, and there we go. So now when a user is going to subscribe, okay, he will receive this confirm sign up. All right, but right now I don't want to use the application. So I'm going to use exactly the same here, but for the invite, because with my users table, I will be able to invite myself through a fake email. It will be faster. So I'm going to get back to templates here, and I'm going to go to invite user, and I'm going to copy paste the exact code. So I'm going to change, and I'm going to put you have been invited, exactly like up there. Thank you to confirm. Okay, I'm going to change this text a little bit because I have to be clear on what is this invitation. You have been invited to create an account. So I'm going to change this, an account, and an account on, and here I can put the URL. So actually I'm going just to grab the same text and be safe, of course, about the text. So here is not confirm your sign up, but here it's going to be this, there we go. And on my button, I'm going to get on the button text. It's not going to be confirm sign up. So sorry about that. I'm going to put it like this. There we go. I'm going to say create an account. There we go. And after on the text is best regard. If you do not initiate this sign up, please disregard this email. I can remove it. Okay, there we go. So I got my email there, and I can remove the previous template because I want to have only one template. So as you see, you just have to write some HTML here and to insert your confirmation URL variable. And what I did, I put some CSS because I want to have something nice. Okay, you have been invited to, and here I can put code with Guillaume. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to get down, I'm going to click on save. Okay, all right, successfully updated. So I'm going to get back to users, And I'm going to invite a fake email address. So it's going to be fake email superbase@yopmail.com. So I'm going to save this fake email superbase@yopmail.com. There we go. And here we see waiting for verification. So I'm going to go on my email. I'm going to put my fake email superbase@yopmail.com. I'm going to click on this. And there we go. I got my email with the design. You have been invited. You have been invited to create an account on blah, blah, blah. So localhost 3000, of course. This is wrong. We should later change the URL, of course. Create an account, best regards. Okay? So basically, if I click here, what's going to happen? And there we go. It worked. My fake email superbase@yopmail.com has been recorded as a user. I'm going to get back to my template. So what we did is just the invite user, but we could do the same for the magic link, for the change email address, for the reset password, the confirm sign up, and there we go. If you are looking for email templates, you can either ask ChatGPT to write one for you in HTML and CSS, or you can browse online and find the design that you want. When a user is signing up to your front-end application, or if he invites a user to join it, for instance, well, there is a redirection that is triggered from the button in the email. And actually, you have to deal with the URL confirmation, this variable that we can find in the email template. We saw previously that we can inject this variable inside the email templates of different cases. However, this URL has to be changed once you are in production. Because for now, what we've got this site URL here, which is my localhost 3000. And you understood that in production, localhost 3000 does not exist. You need a website. So configure the URL of your site. This is used for password reset email and other links. Well, this URL configuration side is very important for Superbase and especially for you when you are going to deliver your application for the clients in production. So what you need to do is when you deliver your application and you want to redirect immediately from the web, you have to change this website URL. So I give you an example. For instance, I will have a website one day, very soon, called codewithguillaume.com. And I'm going to use this instance of Superbase to trigger this redirection on password reset or on confirmation signup. I will have to change this website URL to change actually the variable inside the email template down here. All right, that is the first case of the URL configuration. Another case is the redirect URLs. Well, sometimes you need to redirect some URLs on post-authentication, for instance, as we see down there. So basically, you can click here and add a domain to redirect on authentication services. So this concerns the redirect URLs pattern. However, for most of you here, you would need just to change the site URL to the production URL. It is time for us to look at the core feature of Superbase, which is actually to read, insert, delete, or update elements inside our table. Okay, so right now I'm on my Superbase instance, and I currently have one table called Orders. And Orders is composed by an ID created at client ID, price, address, zip code, city, etc., etc. So what I would like to have is a set of fake orders to start. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my SQL editor, and I already prepared a fake script to insert fake orders inside my table. We will insert all these fake orders inside the table orders. And later what we're going to do, we are going to use the SDK of Superbase to fetch all those orders here. And what we will do also is to do some operations on them. So we are going to read them for sure. Then we will try to insert a new order. Then we will delete some orders. So let's go. On my SQL editor right now, I have created a new query and I'm going to rename it. It's going to be insert 20 fake orders. Okay, so I'm going to rename the query this way, and there we go. And here I'm just going to copy paste a list of fake orders that I have created based on my model. So my table orders is composed by colon address, colon zip code, city, name, ID, client ID, and created at. And there we go, success, no row returns. It means that my query didn't fail and it worked. I'm supposed to get right now all the orders in my table orders. I'm going to go to it. And there we go, I got fake orders. We are missing the price for now. Sorry, it's a mistake, but we will be able maybe later to change it. Now I got all those fake orders. What I'm gonna do, and remember on my Vue.js app right now, I got the SDK installed and I have my session, I'm logged in. So what I'm gonna do, first I'm going to check on my database, and we never know. I'm going to check on my database if I got the row level security. Okay, so I got enabled the row level security, okay? And what about the policies of it? So I'm going to get back to the table orders here. I'm going to click up there and we see that I got one active row level security. So we can see that we enable the insert for authenticated user only. However, I want to grab them. Click on new policy. I'm going to click on get started. And here we are. So enable read access to everyone. It's not exactly what I want. What I want is to select only if you are authenticated. Later, we will work maybe on adding a column with the user ID to know who created the current order and to manage only the current user to grab his orders, not the orders of somebody else. So I'm going to click on review. I'm going to click on save policy, so to authenticated only role, and I'm going to save that. And there we go. So now we see that we can select the orders for authenticated. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on API docs down there. And here what we've got is that here, every time we are going to create a new table, we will have all the code generated by the SDK for my tables. So here I got clients, of course, but here I got orders also. So I'm interested in orders. And here we see that we got some code that we can copy paste directly inside our application to get our orders. Okay, so here I'm not interested on getting only one key. What I would like to have is to have all the orders. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to grab this, I'm going to copy this, there we go. Again, if I would be logged in as a user to grab my orders, what I would do as a super admin, I would tell in the policies to be able to grab only my orders. Okay, back in my application, what I can do is to import Supabase, okay, coming from Supabase, there we go, okay? So it's my Supabase instance, which is here with my create client. And what I'm gonna do at first is to create a function, okay? So it's going to be fetch orders, which will be, of course, an asynchronous function. In here, I'm going to create a try catch function, and inside I'm going to catch the error. So I'm going to console log my error. And if there is orders, I want to console log them. So I'm going to console log my orders. There we go. What I'm going to do here, I'm on Vue.js, but it's going to work also on React, Next, Svelte, SvelteKit, whatever. I'm going to launch this function here and let's go. So here, it's not an asynchronous component or whatever. We don't care for the moment. We just want to look at our orders. And look at this, there we go. I got all the fake orders I had before without the price. And as we see here, we've got all the data we asked. So as you see here, just this piece of code and using the SDK of Supabase is helping me to grab actually a table and to select by using select here from orders to grab all the orders that I wanted. Okay, so let's say now I want to grab only, for instance, I want to grab only the name, okay, and the ID. Instead of putting the star, I'm going to put the ID, and let's say that I would like to have the name, okay? So let's get back, let's look at it, and look at this. we are selecting only the ID and the name, which is really cool because sometimes we don't want to grab all the data. We would like to be fast and just to have some elements of the orders. So here I'm just selecting the ID or the name. For the foreign table, I will do another video about it to explain deeper how we can grab some data from another table based on a specific column, okay? So also what I can do, which is really cool, is that I can work with the pagination with range. So here I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to get back. And instead of having the ID and the name, I'm going to grab all the orders. I'm going to take range here, which is a value that I could change, for instance, with here pagination. And because I'm on Vue.js, I'm going to put ref here. Okay, so I would need to import ref from Vue in my case. There we go. So here I got pagination. Let's say I'm going to put pagination here. So pagination.value. There we go. And when I get back and I update, what's going to happen is that I got from 0 to 9. Imagine later I want to do an infinite scroll on all the orders. What I would do is that at first I would grab the 10 orders, I would scroll down, and what I would do is to store those orders into an array. And then with the pagination, I would just increase this number to fetch the new orders coming from 10 to 19, for example. What about filtering? So here you got a lot of examples on how to filter, okay, on how to filter your orders. So let's say that right now, let's look at it. And here I got Michael Johnson, okay. So let's say that I'm going to grab this name, Michael Johnson here, okay. And let's say that I would like to have the order of Michael Johnson. So right now I only got one, but what I would do is coming back here and using point equal. So I'm going to go here, and here the column would be name, because on orders I got a column name. And let's say that I'm going to put Michael Johnson as a result. I would like to have only the orders of Michael Johnson for any reason. So I'm going to get back here. I'm going to update and look at this. I got the order of Michael Johnson. So I used dot equal to do it. All right. I could use also greater than. So greater than would be, for instance, if I would have a number, because right now I don't get any price in my order. What I would do is actually to put the column price greater than, and I would put the number. And there's a lot of other options: less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, case sensitive. So here it would be very nice to try. Another comparator would be is. Here we could see that we want to match the columns in order that will be null. So actually I would have all of them because right now it's a problem. You could use in to do some comparison on a column with an array, with array values. So here you would put an array and here you would do some comparison, etc., etc. So you can find this in API docs filtering here, and you get a lot of options to deal with some filtering on some columns. All right, I got a button here, insert fake order. I'm not going to put a full form. You can do it, it's really easy. And when I'm going to click on it, I'm going to insert a new order. So I'm going to pass to 20 records down there, okay? So I'm going to insert a new order. So what I need to do here is to grab the function to insert a new order. So I'm going to get back here, and instead of having all of this, I'm going to use exactly the same. So here I'm going to copy paste this function here, and I'm going to not trigger fetch order here, but to trigger it on my button. So down there I'm going to type on click insert order. So right now I don't get this function. What I need to do is to create this function. So let's change it up there. Insert order. Okay, so when I'm going to click on insert order, it's going to insert an order. However, what I need to do is to write this function. So I'm going to get back here. I'm going to insert this one. And here I got to insert actually a fake order. So I'm not obliged to put an array here. Here they put an array because maybe sometimes you would like to insert several elements. But I'm just going to put my order here. So let me write a fake order based actually on the model of my database. All right, so I created a new order, but this time there is no ID and no created at. Why? It's really simple to understand. Remember, our table order actually generate the ID and generate at the same time the created at. Okay, so I can't push any ID that I would invent by myself here because it will not match to what we created on the table orders. So I got this order with address, zip code, etc., etc. I can even put a price, so I'm going to put 12, for instance. And when I'm going to click on this insert order, it will push this into my database. So what I want to do, I want to say if there is data, I want to console log the data. Okay, so let's look at what it's going to give to do this. My call is passed with a 201, there we go. And if I get back to my orders, there we go, we've got 20 records. So it means that somewhere here and at the end, of course, I got my order with the 12 into the price. And it's about Emily Williams. So I'm going to show it here. There we go. So now let's grab again the orders of Emily Williams. So I'm creating a new function called fetch orders from Emily Williams. I'm going to get down this way. So I'm going just to show it this way. And instead of having this insert that we have here, I'm going to put select all the orders and I'm going to use the client ID because here I can just identify Emily Williams with her client ID. So I'm going to grab this one here. I'm going to console log this and there we go. So here it's going to be orders and I'm going to console log the orders and I'm going to fetch the orders from Emily Williams. Back in my application, I update and look at this. I got the 2 orders of Emily Williams, once with 12 as a price and once with null. Another thing that I could do is instead of using this, I could use the name. So now I'm going to grab the name of Emily Williams. There we go. And here I'm going to put name. And when I get back, I got the same results. I got the order of Emily Williams. You have to be always clear about what you want to fetch. Either it's going to be the name, either it's going to be the client ID, all right? Be safe because sometimes you may have some error if you don't match the right client ID or the name, okay? So right now I got the 2 Emily Williams matching with the same client ID, but in the 2 cases I'm supposed to have 2 orders. If you would have 3 and 2 in one, it would mean that either the client ID would be false, either your name would be false also. Okay, so this time we want to update an order of Emily Williams. And if I look at my list down there, we see that here Emily Williams has a price null on a specific element ID, which is this one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a function, and here it's not going to be insert in order. This function will be actually const update Emily Williams order, okay? So this is a very bad practice that I'm showing here to you, but it's just into the context. So I'm going to do always the same. So it's going to be a try catch, and here it's not going to be insert order, but it's going to be update Emily Williams order. So I'm going to get back down there, update Emily Williams order. Okay, for this example, I'm going to get back to the documentation and I'm going to grab this code, which is update here. Okay, what I want to do here is to target a specific order. So here I'm going to type here that I'm looking for a order with a specific ID. And remember, it's this specific ID down there with the price null. So I'm going to grab this ID and I'm going to put it here. And what I want to update is the price. And let's say that here I'm going to put a 200. Okay, so I'm going to console log the error if I got an error, and I'm going to console log the data if there is data, like always. So console log data. There we go. So I'm going to update the order of Emily Williams with this ID and change its price. But the thing here is that I didn't add on row level security the policy to update my orders. So I'm going to click here on get started and I'm going to put here for update using auth.gwt. Alright, let's try again. If I click on update Emily's order, there's nothing happening. But if I update my table and I look at the price, there we go, it worked. We've got the price at 200 down there. And if I'm checking to my orders, there we go, I got 200 here on the price of my table. Okay, now let's delete this order. Really easy to do. Like always, we go here and we've got a delete row, delete matching row. We're gonna grab this and I'm going to do exactly the same. All right, I got a function called delete Emily William order. Inside, I got the equivalent to the ID of the order that I want to delete. I got delete here. And when I'm going to click down there, I will trigger the function. But before, I need to add a new row level security. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to go down. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this template on authenticated again. And actually, auth UID will be related to client ID. So that's a good example. Remember, I got a client ID here. So let's say that we would like that only Emily Williams would be able to delete her own order. We would have to match, actually, this client ID with the current session I am in. Right now, it's not the case. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put true for the example, but don't do it. All right, I got my row level security. So now I'm getting back, I'm updating. I'm going to click on delete Emily William order and I'm going to update again. And right now I got only one order because I deleted the previous one. In this course, we saw that we can read, insert, update or delete element with the SDK of Supabase. Before, what we have to do is to always work on the row level security, on the authentication part, on policies, and to enable some cases if we want to insert, select, update or delete our elements from the table coming directly from our Supabase instance. Of course, with Supabase, we can subscribe to the changes of a table. Here, I got a table order with 20 fake orders, okay? So what I can do, I can click here on API Quick Start, or I can go down here on API Docs. But if I click here, I got a quick access to the API documentation related to Supabase. So I got all the code related to the SDK. And when we go down, we see here that we got subscribe to changes. And here we got the code that we can import into our application. So right now in my app, it's totally empty. I don't got the orders. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get back here and I'm going to create a new function called fetch orders. Okay, so here it will be an asynchronous function. All right. What I want to do before triggering this fetch order, I want to create an interface because I'm on TypeScript, which will be an interface order. In this interface, I will have the model of my table. So here it's going to be a name, ID, I created that, etc., etc. And down there, I want to create a const orders. Here is going to be a reference. And this will be an array. So I'm waiting for an array. What I want to do also is to specify here is going to be of type order. Here we go. So now we are going to store our orders here. What I can do is to write my function fetch order. So it's going to be really simple. I'm going to fetch from Supabase my orders and I'm going to apply the orders to this variable here. Then I want to trigger this fetch order at the end of my code. And when I get back, here we go, we've got all the orders. Okay, so now I'm going to put the order this way, and here I'm going to put the Supabase instance here. So I'm going to get back here, and here we go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change data here, and it will appear immediately here. But before, I need to implement my code to subscribe to the table orders. So the first thing I need to do is to create a const channel here, and I'm going to call Supabase, okay? And then I'm going to call the function channel. So here it's going to be my new channel for orders, let's say. Okay, you can give the name you want. And here we go. So here we are creating a channel. So I'm going to put some space here to be more clear. Here we are. Then I'm going to type on, And here I will take 3 arguments. The first one, it's an argument that is totally normal, which is Postgres changes. Here we are. Then I'm going to specify, okay, the event that I want. So here, the event that I want is to have all the order back, okay? Here you can put the specific key that you want. The schema, it's going to be public, okay? And here I'm going to specify the table, which will be orders, okay? So right now it's on red because the last argument will be a callback, a function, and this is where I'm going to catch my event. So I'm going to console log my event. Here we are. Last thing, if you want to put a filter, you can put it here by typing here body is equal, and here you can type your filter. So you got equal, you got LTE, etc., etc. Me, I don't want that. I want to get back the changes here. Okay, so here we are. At the end, what we need to put, of course, is .subscribe, which is a function. So now when we're gonna have changes, what's gonna happen is that we are going to console log the changes here. But before, we have to enable this real time. So what we're gonna do, we are going to click here on database, and we're gonna go here on replication, okay? On replication, I got Supabase real time. On insert, update, delete, truncate. But here, as we see, we've got 0 table. So we need to say, hey, this table is enabled for Supabase real time. So I'm going to click on 0 table, and here we've got orders by client, and here we got client. So here I'm going to check on here. Here we go, orders is enabled for real time. Back into my application, we see that here Ava Wilson is living in Chicago on the 60606 zip code. I'm going to change her zip code, and down there in the console we are supposed to get an event console logged. So I'm going to put 0, and look at this, we've got the answer from our subscribe, and we've got a lot of data here. We've got the commit timestamp, we've got an update, we've got the old data, and we've got the new data, and we can see that the zip code is now 0. So now I have to update in my array of orders, okay, this new data for Ava Wilson. Back in my code, I'm going to destructure my event, so it's going to be const. Here it's going to be my event, and here it's going to be new. However, I don't want to use new, I want to type new order, because here in this scope it's an order. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to apply to orders value an orders.value.map, and here I'm going to check the order, okay? So what I'm going to do here exactly, I want to check if it's the right idea that I want to change inside my array. So I'm going to type if order.id is equal to new order.id, here we are. What we want to do here is to return an object that will merge at first the order, but the new data. So new data here, the new order this way, okay? And at the end, of course, we want to return also the other orders. All right, so here we are supposed to merge the old data with the new data inside our orders array locally. Back in my application, Ava Wilson is on the bottom, and our function will help us to not move those elements. I got Jackson Thompson here at the top, and I'm going to change Jackson Thompson here, and it's supposed to change Jackson Thompson on my app in real time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put code with Guillaume, okay, as a value. I'm going to type enter, and look at this. Here we are. It changed my value for code with Guillaume. So it's really, really useful. What I'm going to do, I'm going to change also the price, and this time it's going to be $100. Look at this. And here we are. For Madison Perez, we've got $100. So here in the database, it's moving from the top to the bottom, but not in my application. In real time, we succeed to change the order's value, and it's applying to my array the new value. So why would you need to subscribe to events? Well, for different kind of application. Here we are on a CRM, so we've got clients here, a list of orders, but you could do that for a chat, of course, because in a chat, you would like that people get the new messages in real time, so you would subscribe into your application with the method channel on and subscribe, you would subscribe to the list of latest messages coming from your database. As you see, it's really fast to set up. It's really easy to use. Of course, if you want to filter, you would need to add the filters and check at the API docs for it. But here in some minutes, we succeed to subscribe to a channel and we succeed to update our value locally. How to make relation between tables in Supabase. Let's get an example. In the previous lessons, I have created a table orders and a table client. Let's start over for this example. I have here a SQL query that will actually create a table orders with a model, ID, client ID, etc., etc. I'm enabling the row level security, and I got a table client with an ID. After, I'm inserting in my clients the email. It will create an ID also. And in my table orders, okay, I'm going to generate a fake order, and I'm going to inject from clients that is related to the email of Daniel Garcia, which is up there. So I'm going to click on run, and here we are. So I'm going to get back to my tables, and now I'm going to have two tables, a table client with an ID, and I'm going to have a table orders with an order, and in here I'm going to have here exactly the client ID of the email, Daniel Garcia. So the client ID of an order is actually the ID of a client. So now what I can do is to make a relation between them. In database here, I'm going to click on my table orders. I'm going to click here on the pen, and I'm going to add a foreign key relation. So I'm on orders, and when I click here, I want to make a reference to another table. And this table here, you understood, it will be clients. And of course, I want to make a relation with the ID from clients. So I'm going to click on save. And here we are. We have a relation now between every order, which the client ID will be related to the client's ID. Now I know that I got this relation. So to confirm that, I can go on the table orders. And here we see that there is a little link here, which means that there is a relation on this column to another column. Now I'm going to go on API docs on the table orders, and I'm going to look for foreign key. Okay? And down there we see that with the SDK, I have a solution to fetch actually my orders with another table. So here you understood it's going to be clients. And between parentheses, I'm going to put what? I'm going to put the foreign key. And in orders, the foreign key, it's client ID. Back in my app, I have a function fetch order with a star here. And what I want to do, I'm going to put here at the line clients, so the foreign tables. And in clients, I'm going to put a star because I want to have the full client. Of course, before, I need to check if my row level security policies are made. Here, it's not the case. So I'm going to add a new policy. Let's say that I'm going to apply this enable read access on clients, and I'm going to do exactly the same on orders. And here we are. I got my order down here, and if I click on it, look at this. I got client ID, but I also got the data from the client. So what we did here, we created a relation. We used the client ID of an order to make a relation to another table, which is client ID. Of course, you can make as much relation as you want until the moment it doesn't imply that the column have constraints that are not related. For example, primary keys is nullable, etc., etc. You gotta be sure that your columns can fetch together. Here, I got a column client. So if I click here, I got some elements, and I can also here, if I want, make a relation, okay, between the client's email and order. So here I'm going to click on select a tables to reference to, and here is going to be orders. And when I click down here, I can check that the order's email will be fetched in relation to the client's email. So I'm going to click on save, and here we see that we got the relation already done. And here we are. I got a relation between those two. Of course, if you want to delete those relations, you can do the opposite. Supabase is built around Postgres. And in Postgres, you can create what we call functions. Functions can be triggered on insert, update, delete, and other steps of your application. If you don't know what are functions in Postgres, I just typed it in Google. Let's look at the definition together. A PostgreSQL function, or a stored procedure, is a set of SQL and procedural commands, so like SQL scripts that we got in Supabase, such as declaration, assignments, loop, flow of control, etc., stored in the database server and can be involved using the SQL interface. So here in Postgres, or Supabase, we can create our function. And if we want to have some example, we can click here on the SQL editor. And remember, on the SQL editor, we can write scripts, but we also got custom scripts already written by the Supabase team. But at first, what I want to do, I want to get back to my table editor. And remember, I've built this app that is fetching the orders from my table here, orders. So what I want to do, I want to go back to my table orders. And here I would like to increment a field. However, there is no field that I would like really to increment. So I'm going to add one column here by clicking here. And here we are. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a column called views. And it's going to be number of views of my order. It doesn't make really sense here, but it's just to give you an example. The data type, it's going to be an integer 2. Okay. And the default value would be 0. Okay, we don't allow nullable. I'm going to click on save. And here it's going to add to every column, actually, of my orders, here the views. So here we don't get a 0. I don't know why, maybe I went too fast, but anyway. On fetch, I'm going to look at my order, and here we are. We see down there that we got the views. So we would like to increment this count every time we fetch actually the order. We can do that with functions. There are two ways to create function in Supabase. The first one is to go to the SQL editor and to write a script like I have here, or either you can check to take one here. The second way is to go to database, and here you've got functions on alpha. So when you click on functions on alpha, here I already created a function, but I'm going to click on create new function. Here I can create my function. So let's say that I'm going to recreate the one I have. It's increment, and it's going to be on public. And here we return void, but later we will need to return trigger if we want to pass the trigger. I can add my new argument, and down there I can copy paste the part on PLP GSQL, the language to write my function. Okay, so down there you would have your function. Let's say that as an argument I would have my order ID, which will be an integer, no, not an integer 2, but it would be a UUID. Here we are, and down there I would copy paste the function that I want. And here we are. You have advanced settings to change the behavior. Here is going to be volatile. We've got our language. We can pass some params, and we can work on the type of security. Check the security invoker. Here you would have your function, and then you click on confirm, and it will save your function. Finally, you got your function appearing here, increment, with the argument, row UUID, with a return type void. And when you click on it, you can edit it, go to the doc, or delete the function. The second way is to go to your SQL editor and to write your own function, or to select a script there. So we are going to select this increment field value. We are in the SQL editor, of course. I'm going to click on here. And here we have create function increment here. So we've got some Postgres here, PLSQL, sorry, that has been written for us here immediately. And what we would like to do is to change a bit this function to adapt it to our column. All right, I have a query here to actually increment my table's view. So here is the function that I wrote, and I got my update orders, and I'm setting the view +1, where the row ID will be equal to ID as a language SQL volatile. There we go. So I'm going to click on run, and here we are. My function is now existing. If I want to check, I can go to database and to function up here. And what's appearing here, I got my function increment. Now I'm getting back to my app, and I have a function increment view where I call superbase.rpc increment. The first argument of this function is the name of your function, actually. So .rpc is the function to call increment here, and we pass here the object with the row ID. Remember, this row ID, we need it in our function. So if I get back to my query, here we pass the row ID, which is the UUID. The row ID, it's simple, the ID of my order, okay? So here I'm just changing Daniel Garcia, so I put here the ID immediately of Daniel Garcia. Let's go back to our app and let's check if we pass from 0 to 1. Back in my app, I'm going to update. Let's look at the network, and we see down there that I called increment. Here we are. If I look at the object in the console, I got view 0. So I'm going to update again, and let's look there. And here we are, we got views 1 here. Of course, we don't count the view that we just passed. So if we get back, actually, here we are, we see that we got 2 views for Daniel Garcia. Okay, so that's how we can call functions immediately from our app in Superbase. We create our function first, then we look at the row level security policies if we got something to change to allow the client to update or insert. And finally, we call it by using superbase.rpc, the name of the function, and we can pass as many arguments as we want. Previously, we created a function together to increment our views inside our table in Superbase and per extension with Postgres. But we can call this function with what we call triggers. If you want to know where are your triggers inside Superbase, you can go here on the left on database, and when you click on it, you got a list up there. So I'm going to zoom a bit, and here we got triggers. And when you click on triggers, here we are. You got a list of triggers here, and you got the triggers under every schema. Okay, you got schema real-time, schema PG Sodium, schema storage. And here we got the name of our triggers and the table where they act. So here we got subscription for tier checks filter. We see that the function that we call is subscription check filters, and it's triggered on certain events. Here it's before insert, before update. So we understand that triggers are calling function at a certain time when there is a special event. And here we see that we got these events before insert, before update. For those who don't know Postgres, let's look at the definition of triggers. PostgreSQL triggers are database callback functions which are automatically performed, invoked, when a specified database event occurs. So we can see here that our function, our triggers, are actually linked to a specific database. A trigger that is marked for each row is called once for every row that the operation modify. So when we get back here, we see that we've got a function tier check filters on the table subscription. The function that is called is subscription check filters, and here we got the events before insert, before update. Okay, at first what we can do is to click up here to create a new trigger, and we can see here we got the name of a new trigger. Okay, so here please use snake case by default, and here you can check the table if you want to check a specific table. So here we've got session auth, we got user auth, and we've got up here orders, the table that we created before in this course. Here are the list of the events. Okay, we've got insert, update, delete. Okay, these are the events you want to trigger your trigger and the function. And here you got the trigger type. So when you click on it, it's before or after, as you see here. Okay, before the event or after the event. For the orientation of the statement, we can say that it fires once for each processed row. Most of the time you will select that. And down here, you're going to choose the function to trigger. So this is the first way to add a new trigger. If you don't want to use the SQL editor, you can go here and click to add a new trigger. And down here, you would select the function that you would have created previously. If you want to know how to create a function, please refer to the lesson on functions. Okay, I'm going to write a SQL query to create a table, to create a function to add every time somebody is going to authentify to my Supabase instance a row in this table users. Be safe, it's not going to be about the auth.users table, it's going to be about the users table, and then I'm going to create the trigger immediately. So I'm going to click here on new query, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to type create table users. Okay, right now I don't got any table, so here it's going to be good. It's going to be with an ID, with UUID, references here auth.users, okay, not null, and it's going to be primary key. Here we are. So I'm going to zoom a little bit for you. Here we are. Then it's going to have an email, and I'm going to store the email text here. Okay, so I'm going to go down here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to create also a function. So I'm going to type create or replace, because maybe we're going to run the query several times if we make mistakes. Okay, function, and here is going to be public dot handle new user. Here we are. There we go. And then we are going to return here, returns a trigger. It's really important at this step to return the trigger because we fix the trigger on this function. Okay, you have to return the trigger. So here is going as $. Here we are. And we are going to type begin and end. And between those two, we are going to pass our function. And we want to say insert into public.users. So here, the table that we've got up there, we want to insert an ID and an email. And where it's going to come from? Well, it's going to come from the new user that is going to actually log in or subscribe to my application. So basically here we've got new that is available in my scope. So what I can do is to say values here, and it's going to be new ID. And then I'm going to pass new.email, okay? So here I'm going to return new, here we are. And after I'm going to show you where it comes from exactly. Here we are. So at the end, I'm going to type here language, and here it's going to be PLP GSQL, and it's going to be of type security definer. Here we are. And here we are. We've got our function here that is going to work. Okay, down here, I'm going to create a trigger. So I'm going to type create trigger, and here on new user, okay? And here it's going to be after insert, and it's going to be on auth.users. Here we are. And down there, what I want to write here is that for each row, I want to do what? I want to execute procedure, okay? And here it's going to be what? I think you understood. It's going to be public handle new user. And here we are. It's supposed to be good. So now I'm going to go on my database. I'm going to go on functions. And here on function, we see that we've got handle new user, which is return type trigger, okay? And if I go on my triggers, here, down here, I'm going to unzoom, here we are. We can see that we've got on new user, which is my trigger that is going to call what? It's going to call, actually, we don't see it here, but it's going to call my function. Okay, let's get back to our tables. And here we've got our table that has been created. There is no row level security enabled, so maybe I want to do it. So I'm going to type enable row level security. We've got our table with ID and email. And what we're going to do, we are going to go to authentication, add a new user, and see if our trigger is going to be actually calling the function and add the new user. So I'm going to click here on authentication. Here we are. So I'm going to take this fake user. It's going to be this one, and I'm going to put a new number. Click on invite user. Okay, the invite has been sent. And now if I go to my table users, here we are. We see that we've got our function that has been triggered. All right, so what we did here, we created in our script a table users. Then we created a function, and this function can be found here in functions alpha, here handle new user. And if I click here, exactly, we've got the code that I wrote between begin and end just here with the public, etc., etc. Then I created a trigger called onNewUser that is triggered after insert. And this trigger is triggered every time there is a new user on the table auth. So if I get back to my table, I got my own table, user, public.user, which is here, we see the schema. And what happened is that I added a new user through the authentication system. I invited a new user. So if I click here and I look at the schema down here, which is auth, I got a list of tables related to the schema auth. And down there I got users. And we can see that in users, I got my new user here. So when I have a new user, it's new.email that I catched inside my function. And with this new email that I catch inside my function, I said add it to the public.user table. Supabase is built around Postgres, and of course Postgres is using schemas. So what are schemas? Well, actually a schema, it's a named container for database objects such as tables, views, sequences, indexes, functions. Schemas are a way to organize the separations and to organize your database objects. A schema is essentially a namespace that contains one or more objects. By default, there is a schema called public. So here, when I go back to my table, we can see up here that we can select the current schema we are on depending the tables. So when I click here, I can select, for instance, auth, and we see that I access new tables. So we understand that auth and public are two different schema containing their own tables. So by default, this schema is the default schema, public, okay? And all objects created without specifying a schema will end up in public by default. So why do we need such a thing? Why do we need schemas? Well, I told you first, it's for the organization. You can separate some parts of your application directly through the schemas. Of course, schemas are used to manage permission. Let's say that some part of your application, you want it to be available only for admins. You would do some schema like admin, or you would have the public that will be for public, etc., etc. You can create as much schema as you want, and you can determine actually to who you want to build this schema for. Schemas are also amazing to avoid naming conflicts. Here on public, I got a table user, all right, with 2 columns. But if I go on auth, I also got a table user depending on another source of data. So I have auth.users, but I got also public.users. So here we avoid the match between 2 tables that got the same name but don't get the same columns, the same model. Schemas are also amazing to facilitate the multi-tenancy of your application. So what does it mean? Well, let's imagine that you got multiple clients and you want the customer to share data. Each client can have their own schema. Those multiple clients, it helps them to keep the data separated and organized. Basically, a schema provides some help to separate the concerns of your table, to manage and secure your database, particularly when the size is going to grow up and the complexity is going to make trouble to your developers to understand where are the data exactly and to not mix the database names. Okay, so let's get back to the SQL editor and we are going to create our first schema. So here I got a create schema sales. It will create the schema sales. So I'm going to create a table and here it's going to be the name of the schema. So sales.customers. All right. And inside here, I'm going to have what? I'm going to have an ID type UUID and it's going to be actually not null, primary key. Here we are. Then we would have a name, it would be a text, okay, and an email that would be a text also. Here we are. So I'm going to click on run and look, success, no row return. I'm going to get back to my table. And if I go to schema, suddenly I got the schema sales, okay? So I'm going to click on sales And now I got the customer which is actually empty right now, but I created a separated part of my application through the schema. So now I got the public and I can have the schema sales if I want to store customer somewhere else in a different business logic or a different part of concern of my application. Storage in Supabase is super easy. Once you have created your project, you can go down here to storage, okay? And when you click here, you arrived on the list of the buckets. The buckets, it's the places, it's where you are going to store all your documents, images, whatever, okay? So here we are. So I'm going to click on create a new bucket. And here, let's say I'm going to create a bucket for avatars. All right. So here I can only enter letters, number, dots, and hyphens, all right? So buckets cannot be renamed once created, so be safe on the name you are going to give. If I click down there, here it's going to be a public bucket. So if it's public, anybody who's got the URL will be able to fetch and see the image, okay? So here for avatars, it's the case, okay? I want it to be public. But be safe if you want to have specific documents that are going to be private, you will not edit this public bucket, but you will work with row-level policies after to be able for the users to fetch the document, the private document they uploaded before. So down here I got a warning, public buckets are not protected. Users can read objects in public bucket without any authorization, okay? Row-level security policies are still required for other operations such as objects upload and delete. So we see now that when we create a bucket, actually, we have to still write some row-level security policies to be able to fetch the elements. So I'm going to click on create the bucket, avatars, and here we are. And we see up here that we've got a label public that tells us that here it's public, it's available on fetch. Okay. So what I'm going to do up here is to upload a file. However, I can, if I want, create a folder also. I can reload, etc., etc. So I'm going to click on upload the file, and here I got the image, the thumbnail of the current video that you are watching. Here it's storage.png. And when I click on it, I got some information here. Here's the thumbnail, you get the image size, you got the date, you can download it, get the URL. So I'm going to click on get the URL and I'm going to enter the URL up here. And we see that there is a public inside inside the URL. So it means that I can fetch it. And here we are, we got the image available thanks to the bucket option that we got here, download. Of course, if I want to delete, I can click delete here. I can also download it immediately. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this file for now. And now in my application, I'm going to push actually the image directly from some kind of avatar element that help me to upload the image. All right, here we are. I got this upload element with Tailwind CSS, and when I click on it, I can upload an element. However, I didn't work on the row-level security yet. So what I need to do is to get back to my application and go to my script SQL editor. I have written this SQL script to tell that I want to enable on a certain table the row level security. Okay, so here we see that the schema is storage. So let's have a look. Let's get back on our table editor, remember. And if I click down there, I got a look for a schema called storage. And this is where is the schema with all the tables and all the policies related actually to the storage. So I'm going to click here on upload. And here we are. Look, we've got 3 tables. We got buckets. Okay, we've got migration and we got objects. So I'm going to click on bucket. And when I click on bucket, what's happening here is that I got actually a table with name ID. Okay, with ID and name avatar, sorry. I got a created date, etc. Public true. Auto detection false, etc., etc. Okay, so here it's the bucket I created. It's a table related to the buckets that I'm going to create in the future. And look at this, on objects I got an entrance, okay, that is pushed here. So what I gotta do is to enable the row level security on storage and object. So I'm going to get back to my SQL editor and let's look at this query that we got down there. Alter table storage.objects, so the schema and the table objects, enable row level security. And here I'm saying for select operation, okay, I want to select only if you are authenticated. Otherwise, you cannot select any element. Also for insert, and I have to use with check instead of using here. It's really important for insert, okay. With check, actually I want to insert only if my role is authenticated. Same for update, same for delete. I'm going to run this query and it's going to enable the row level security on storage.object and add these 4 policies here. Once it's done, I can go to authentication, policies, click here on schema and go down to storage. And I can look here that for objects, I got those row level security here already entered. All right. So what I can do now is to get back to my storage here to avatars. And here I got my component. So let me show you how this component looks like. It's a component made with Tailwind. If there is an image URL, I'm going to show it. Otherwise, I have an avatar upload button here with the SVG that helps me to input actually an image. So up here, I got my function, handle file input change, here we are. So we got the file that I'm going to upload, and I'm going to use my client Supabase storage from avatar, and I'm going to upload here, I'm changing the name of the file, avatar with here the date, and I just put the date this way. If you want to put something else, like for instance, the email of the person authenticated or something else, you can do it here. Then, if there is an error, I'm going to show the error. It's a basic function, help here to push on my storage. So I'm using actually the storage from the SDK client, the storage function with from and upload to upload my file. Let's get back, let's open the console. I'm going to click here, I'm going to click on storage. And here we are, we see that I got my image, so it's not very nice from now. We would say that we would deal with a squared image for an avatar, but anyway. And here I got my image. On my network, I have a 200 for the avatar and the date. Now if I get back to my bucket, I'm going to reload. And here we are, I have uploaded my avatar, okay? It's as easy as this. Of course, you would have several buckets in the future, maybe with different folders where you are going to push into, okay? But it's as easy as this. First, you create your bucket, then you write your row level security policies, then you create your function here. Thanks to the SDK of Supabase in your application, you use storage from, and you upload with the name of the file, then the file itself. As a backend as a service, of course, Supabase is keeping track of all the events through logs. Whatever is happening within your application, Supabase is creating logs. If a user is subscribing, you have a log. If a user is creating a record, you have a log. If he's updating a record, etc., etc. So you can find all the logs of Supabase here in the application, here on logs. So when you click on it, you arrive on the dashboard here on actually an editor to write your query inside your Postgres instance to get all the logs of the last 24 hours, for instance, or you can get the logs of a custom date. Logs can be very helpful in many ways. First, with logs, you can debug your application. So everything that you're gonna do here, you're gonna find some track, for instance, inside here, inside the Postgres instance. So as you see here, I got a track right now on what I'm doing and whatever is happening in here. So when you will get an error, for instance here, we've got a fatal error down here, I can keep track on what's happening on my Supabase instance. So here, it's helping me to know if something goes wrong inside the application. So logs are here to help me to know if an error happened, okay? If an error occurred inside my application. So now I can fix the problem, I can troubleshoot my, actually my process, my application here. And through here, this list of logs that are very consistent, we can see here that almost every second I get 4 or 5 logs, I can click and I can know what happened here. So of course, in terms of security, logs are very useful because I can track the user activity and I can see really clear, really fast if a request indicates some kind of security breach inside my Supabase instance. However, here it's not supposed to happen. Supabase is super strong as a backend as a service, but we never know. We want to always get a hand on what's happening here, and this is why the logs are very useful for security. Another thing is that the logs help us to work with the performance optimization, all right? So actually, when you analyze the logs, you can see which queries are taking the longest to execute. You can have some metrics on what is taking a lot of resources on your Supabase instance. Well, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. You can see also which endpoints are the most frequently requested and give you an insight on what is the feature you created that is the most used. So let's explore a little bit the dashboard of the logs. So here we got the Postgres instance. So as I showed you here, we have the list, and up here we can see that we got a refresh with a real-time notification here with 18 new events. So when I'm clicking on this, look at this, I'm refreshing my logs, and I got here the logs time, the request that I got actually here on my Supabase instance. And I got the latest logs, okay? So I can refresh, I can click also on severity to get only the error. So here I'm going to just save this and let's have a look. And what's gonna happen here, I'm going to have only the errors, okay? So if I'm clicking again and I put no error, of course I will have no error. And if I want to have all the logs, I can click on log this way, all right? Here, if I'm clicking on chart, here I can display or not the chart that I got on the top, all right? So here I'm just going to remove this. I'm going to save again and start again for you to understand. Here we are. And as you see, I can hide and show the chart. By clicking on this button, I have the option to download the logs. So I'm going to save the logs and I'm going to open them, and I have them as a CSV file, all right? So through this CSV file, we can see here that I got all the logs of my Supabase instance. Okay, so here, when I go here on query, I can query actually my Supabase or Postgres instance to get, okay, the latest logs that I want, okay? I can click here on saved queries. So let's say that I want to write some queries that I want to launch really often. I can save them here. I got the recent queries here. And if I don't know how to write queries for this log explorer, I got templates that are here. So it's really nice from the team of Supabase to think about people who don't know how to write queries. Here you got some templates that you can use. I got also the API Edge network that helped me to retrieve all the calls made on my instance through the API Edge, okay? On the host log, it's different. Here, if I want to change, actually, let's say that I want to have the last 3 days logs, what I need to do here is to upgrade my plan. Here, okay, for the log retention, I need to pass to a paying plan. So I need to upgrade my plan. For the storage here, I'm going to do exactly the same. It's exactly the same. I will need to pay to get logs for the storage also because there is still the duration of 3 months log retention. And for the real time, you understood, it's exactly the same. Here, it's a paying feature. What is the most important to remember is that every time you want to debug Supabase, you can go to your instance and go to logs down there and click on your Postgres instance. And in here, you will see all the requests, if they succeed or not, and you will be able to debug just from here. So I didn't show you, but down here, you got some metadata that you can also use, which is very useful if you want to know what was wrong in your request, what happened, and why it failed. One of the advantages of Postgres is that it's extensible. It means that the user can add additional functionalities to Postgres through what we call extensions. And of course, with Supabase, we've got access to extensions. So when you are on your instance, On the left, you go to database, then you go here to extensions. And by default, you got a lot of extensions that are already enabled. So here you see you got a check, and when you click, you can turn on or turn off your extension. But if you go down, there is a bigger list of extensions that you can add. So what kind of extension would you need? Well, for instance, here you got the extension pg_net. And this pg_net, here we've got a description. It's an asynchronous HTTP extension that helps you to actually trigger the extension to make asynchronous HTTP call. Extensions in Postgres are actually software modules that add extra feature to Postgres. They are developed by the Postgres community. And most of the time when you want to do stuff inside your functions, you may want first to enable an extension to do it. Because by default here, you don't get the asynchronous HTTP call inside Postgres. You gotta add this extension pgnet that will help you later to use it inside a function that you are going to declare. Supabase is built on top of Postgres. It is supporting Postgres. So it means that actually you can use everything that comes from Postgres. So if you find an extension available on Postgres, there's a lot of chances that it's already inside your Supabase dashboard. If you are looking for more information about Postgres extensions, you can go on the official documentation of Supabase, and here we've got some explanation. So I already told you that it's in the database on the dashboard, but down here you got a list of the extensions that are available. And if you look here for the extension, you can type HTTP. Here we've got an example with the HTTP client for PostgreSQL, allows web page retrieval inside the database. So what I propose you to do now is to give an example on how to use an extension. All right, so right now I'm on my Supabase dashboard, and here we see that I don't get the HTTP extension yet. So I'm going to look on the list, and we can see here that I got the extension just here on top of me. So I'm going to click on switch on the switch, and here I'm going to enable the extension for the schema extension. So I'm going to click on enable extension. And here we are. So we've got the HTTP on. Now we can create a function that is going to make an HTTP call. I'm on my SQL editor and I have created this function. Let's look at it a little bit. I got a create or replace function get API data that is going to return to me a JSON. Okay, and I got a URL that I'm going to call for an example.com/API data, and I'm supposed to get a JSON from this API. But I would like my function to do this operation. So I have enabled before the HTTP module, and I'm calling the URL here. So HTTP here, it's coming from the extension that we enabled before in the database and in extensions. So here, the function is going to process to the call through the extension HTTP. All right? This is because I have enabled the extension HTTP that I'm able to create this function to make my call to the URL that I declared up there, and this is where I'm going to get the response JSON up here, okay? So the thing is that here I can use my HTTP function because it's already enabled in the extension part. If you would have done it through Postgres, by default, what we would have done actually is to say create the extension if not exist HTTP. Here we don't need to do that because we are in the Supabase environment and we don't need to declare this function declaration creation before because we already enabled it on the extension part. So you got to understand that through the extension, there's a lot of possibilities that you can trigger, a lot of modules that you can find, that you can add actually to Supabase, okay? I'm just showing you today the HTTP one, but you can, for instance, enable GraphQL with Supabase, okay? You can work with the JSON Web Token API for Postgres with PG/GWT, which is enabled here, the PG Crypto, etc., etc. What you got to do is to look for an extension that is doing the job you are looking for. That's the best solution to do, and you can look to it on the Supabase documentation here to see which are the extensions that are enabled. For instance, here we've got the Geo extension that we can look through. We got the data set one, etc., etc. But you can also look at the Postgres regular extensions that are available through Supabase, of course. Let's talk about real-time, and with Supabase, we can do real-time. So what is real-time? Here, I got an application that I have created, and I'm going to push online, okay? And in this application, you will be able to write messages, and here, those messages will be like in real-time, like a chat, okay? So what I want to do here is to create first a table, a new table. And this table is going to be called posts, okay? And on this post, I will have an ID, created at, okay? And what I want to do, I want to actually add the model of my message. So here we see that we've got a name, so I'm going to add a name, and here is going to be a text, okay? And then I will have a description, okay? And here it will have a text also. So here I want to say it's not going to be nullable. For both of them, we want to have some content, and here we are. So I'm going to click on Save. All right, I got my post table, but I didn't enable real-time here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on Database here. I'm going to go on the table post, which is here. And I'm going to click here, you see, we've got Enable Real-Time Broadcast Changes on this table to auto-write subscriber. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to click on Save. And when it's done, what I need to do is to go on authentication, on policies, and I need to add some policies to my table. So I'm going to click here on add a new policy. I will say that I will enable the read access to everyone, and I don't need anything. So here I can select the role anon. So I'm going to click on review, save policy. So everybody will be able to select the post. Now I want to say that I want that everybody can be actually a poster. So I'm going to click here on use template. Here we are. And I'm going to unzoom a little bit. And I'm going to remove here authenticated. Okay, I'm going to put anon. And I'm going to click on review. So now everybody on the post table will be able to get the messages and to insert them. But before we send our message, we need to have a look a little bit at the code. So what do I have here? I have an insert here that actually is inserting the new message that I got up here, okay? And what I do here, I'm pushing the message, of course, locally if we've got data in return. So that's the first thing. Let's see if we can push messages into our posts table. Okay, let's go. Let's say test. I'm going to click send. I'm going to update. And here we are. We've got test here. And if we look at our database, we've got a test down here also. So I'm going to delete this row. Let's say that now what I would like to do is when I put my my message here, I would like him to appear here. So what I can do is to create a second function called fetch message that we can have down there and call it once I have sent my message. That's the first solution. And the second solution is, of course, to subscribe to the table post. So here with that code, with client.channel, and here we are going to subscribe to a custom channel. So here it's going to be the name that I give. It can be anything. I can say on, so channel on, Postgres changes. I'm going to subscribe to any event here with the star on the schema public and on the table post. So I'm going to console log my payload here just to see if I got an answer every time I'm going to push a message. Here it is supposed to answer. So I'm back in my app. Now I'm going to say code with Guillaume and I'm going to type hello there and I'm going to click on send. And look at this, I got an answer from my subscribe and I got the message down there. So if we look here, we've got an answer from the table in real time because we enabled real time before. And because we put this code, client channel on, we are listening, we are subscribing down here to the table post that we've got here. And in real time, when there is some changes, here we can see that we are notified. So what I'm doing here, I'm pushing to my message list, okay, the new message on the payload. So this is why I got this message here. And if I'm getting back to my application, we can see that my message has been recorded. If you want to test this real-time functionality on my own database, you may go to superbase-realtime.netlify.app. Here you can try in real time to post messages, and maybe you will see some other people posting messages at the same time. Edge function became really popular the last years, and with Superbase you can of course create those serverless functions that helps you to trigger some operations. Let me give you an example. You have a front-end application and you need to create a payment with Stripe. You would need to create an API actually between your client and Stripe to trigger this payment intent. How would you do? You would create a Node.js application that you would deploy somewhere. And it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and you may not have that time. Well, the solution is to create actually an edge function to do that. But you could also use this edge function to do a lot of other stuff, such as creating a bot for Discord, a bot for Twitter, or maybe a bot for Telegram. You have to understand that these edge functions are serverless and they help you to deploy really quickly a server where you are going to trigger some actions. All right, so in my Superbase instance, I go here on edge function, and what I can see here is that I got no edge function yet. So I would need to create my first edge function in my Superbase project. So back here, I got my Superbase project. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to copy paste this Superbase function new hello world. But before we do that, I propose you to look at the documentation, okay? So edge functions here are server-side TypeScript function distributed globally at the edge close to your user. So you can use third-party library like Stripe, but also Dino, for instance, and this is what we're going to do. If you want to have some examples, you can go down there with Superbase.js, CORS headers, React Native, Flutter, etc., etc. OG image generation and storage, CDN caching. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with edge functions. And if you are looking for some project done with edge functions, you can go on the Superbase GitHub repository. And here on the examples, here on the Superbase function, you got a lot of examples. So for instance, here we see that we've got edge function with OpenAI, with OpenGraph, Puppeteer if you want to do some bots or some scrapping, Streams, Stripe Webhooks, which are really useful when you want to do some payments, and Telegram bot. But there are a lot of other projects that you can look at. We are going to start by creating our own function. So I'm going to copy paste my Superbase function new hello world. So as we can see, I created a Superbase folder with a subfolder called function with the name of my new function that I created. So here when I type new, after I can put the name I want, it will give the name of the function. All right, so how does it work? I got an index.ts file that is created by default. And here we see that we've got a Dino server here. So we've got some commands here, and down here we have the command if we want to invoke our function. All right. So right now, this function is doing what? It's importing serve from Dino. Here we've got Dino that is exported from a content delivery network, all right, from the official dino.land website. And we've got the function serve. And here we serve a Node.js application, okay? A Dino.js actually here. So it's really simple. In our request, okay, we are supposed to get the name in the request as a JSON. Then we create an object and we return as a response this object. So how does it work? Well, now we've got this function. Right now, our Superbase instance doesn't know, okay? What we need to do is to deploy this function from our project to our Superbase instance. So to do that, I'm going to get back. And here we see that we've got deploy your function. So I'm going to copy paste this. I'm going to get back to my application. And right now, I am logged in on my Superbase instance. If you are not, you will have to type Superbase login, all right? And down here, it will ask you the access token. So if you don't have it, you have to click on this link to open it. And here you have to generate a new token. So I'm going to click here. This name is going to be my new token. Let's say, okay, I'm going to click on generate a token. And here we are. So here, be safe, I get this token. I have to copy this access token somewhere and to keep it because it's really, really important. I'm going to copy paste and I'm going to get back and I'm going to enter my access token here. And here we are, I'm logged in on my Supabase instance. So now what I can do is to get back here and copy paste again my Supabase function deploy hello world. So I'm going to get back and I'm going to copy paste Supabase functions deploy hello world. Be safe. Hello world here is a reference to my folder. So if you gave another name, you have to change the name here. Okay, so I'm going to deploy it directly from my code editor here, from my project locally to my Supabase instance. So I'm going to type enter, and here it says building hello world, and then I got the message deployed function hello world on the project, etc., etc. All right. When I get back in my Edge function, I got my Edge function here. So what I can do is just copy and paste this URL. I'm going to open it inside my browser. And why do I got is missing authorization header? Of course, because here I cannot call my Supabase function if I'm not authorized. All right, remember that you will need the token if you keep the authorization with JWT. So you got the token down here, you would copy paste it inside your header. Otherwise, what you can do just to test is to click here on the function itself. And here you got some information about the name. If you want to change the name, then you got some other information. And down here you got enforce JWT verification. I'm going to disable this just for the example. Please don't do it for the function that you use all the time. Otherwise, anybody could call your function, okay? So I'm going to click on save. Now I'm going to call again my endpoint. Here I'm going to do a post and I'm going to post the name because remember on our function we need to catch the name, okay? And it's supposed to return to us hello name. So let's start. Let's try to call the endpoint itself we just deployed. I'm going to click on send and look at this. Here we are. We've got our message. All right, so here we see that our server is doing some operation for us, and that's really cool. Let's clean this a little bit. And what we would like to do, so I'm going to keep this also. What I would like to do is maybe to call my Supabase instance. So let's give an example. Right now, I got this function, hello world, running. And what I would like to do is actually to call my database here, my tables. And let's say that I would like to get, for instance, the post. So I'm going to look at the post. And here we've got a lot of posts previously of a lot of people that wrote here a lot of messages to test the real time. So let's say that I would like to call here on my request my Supabase instance and get the post by the Edge function. It's totally possible. What I would do at first is to call create client from the Supabase SDK that I'm calling up here from a content delivery network. Then what I would need to do is here to pass some secrets, some environmental variables. What I would need to do here is to create a new file. Here it's going to be an env file, and I'm going to copy paste some keys that will help me to access to the Supabase instance. The first one is going to be a Supabase URL. So here I'm putting an underscore on the top of it to don't get any error. And then it's going to be the Supabase service key. If I want to find those keys, I can go to project settings, API. Here I got my URL. And down here, I need to get what we call the service role key. Here it's going to give me all the access. Okay, so now I can create my client when I initiate my Supabase function. So I'm going to use my Supabase URL that I got in my env file here locally in the same folder. Then I got the Supabase service key hub here, and I'm creating the client down there. So I go on my API docs, I got my post, and let's say that I want to read all the posts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click here, let data post. So I'm going to go down here Here we are. And I'm going to actually return. So here I'm returning the data exactly here. So what I can do is instead returning an object with data anyway. And here I can return my post, okay? So what I'm going to do now is that when I am going to request hello world, it's going to return to me the hello with name, whatever, or let's say that I'm going to put by default Guillaume because I don't want to put Guillaume all the time. And then I'm going to return all the posts from my Supabase instance. So you understand here that I'm using the SDK inside my Supabase Edge function to provide some actions. So here I'm just selecting, but let's say that later you would have an API to do some operation, some CRUD operations, so create, read, update, or delete. You can use the SDK directly from here. But the thing here is that I don't get my env file that is deployed immediately on my function. So what I would need to do is here to push my environmental variable to my Supabase instance. And to do that, we are going to use the Supabase deploy secret function. So I'm going to type Supabase secret set --env file. And here what I need to do is to go to the Supabase folder. So here it's in Supabase function hello world. And here, of course, I need to type env, okay? Just here, I need to type env, okay? So I'm going to type enter. And when I type enter, I got an error called Supabase link. So what I want to do, I want to type Supabase link. And here I need to enter my database password. If I look for the password, what I need to do is to go to project settings database. And here I got a password and it's written the password you provided when you created this project. If you got trouble, you can reset the database password. I got my password, so now I can type Supabase link. And I want to pass the password, so I'm going to type -p and I'm going to type my password and type enter. Okay, now I can come back on the command I entered before. I'm going to type enter. And here we are, finished Supabase secret set. So now I can deploy again. So again, Supabase function deploy hello world. It's going to build again. And at the end, here we are, we've got our hello world function working. Okay, here we are. Let's call again our function. I'm going to click on send. And here we are. So I got my message from the server. And look at this. I got the list of the posts that you posted on the real-time application that I have created before. So what we did here, we created a function that is calling our Supabase instance and that is providing to us some operations that we can do. So you got to see the function like a Dino server that you can call anytime to do some specific operation, okay? Let's get back on everything that we've done since the beginning. We created a function that we deployed immediately on our Supabase instance. Then we can request this function to do some operation. What is this Edge function? This Edge function is actually a Dino server. And this Dino server can do anything that a backend could do. It can do many operations. It can be connected to Stripe. It can be connected to HubSpot. It can be connected to many other libraries. Everything that is an API, actually. We can make call. We can make asynchronous operation. But also we can call our Supabase instance and use the SDK from Supabase exactly like we do in a front-end application to do some operations. So here we've got the select from post that is returning to us the post of the previous users, okay? So here the Edge functions are playing the role of a backend serverless, okay? It's a distant backend that you are going to call. I'm not going to show you in this lesson how to use it locally because you would have to work with Docker and you would have to do some more configuration. And in the description, I'm giving you the link to work with Edge functions locally. It's a video from the Supabase team and it's a very good tutorial from Thor. Thor is a member of the Supabase team. But you have to think about Edge functions like a way of creating really fast a Dino server to do some operations for you. If you are familiar with the concept of webhooks, you got to know that with Supabase, you can also create some webhooks. Webhooks are a way for two APIs to connect together and to exchange some data to communicate every time there is an event. And of course, inside of Supabase, you can do the same. Inside of my Supabase project, what I'm going to do, I'm going to click here on Database. Then I'm going to click here on Webhooks, okay? And then what I have here is database webhooks. Database webhooks can be used to trigger serverless function or send requests to an HTTP endpoint. So I'm going to click on Enable Webhooks, and then I can click on Create Webhook. But before we create a webhook, I would like to create an endpoint with an API. So what I did here is I created a Next.js 13 application, okay? And I got an API endpoint here on my root. And what it does is just have two endpoints. A get endpoint, where I got data in return, and data up here will have the data sent by my webhook, okay? This is just an example, and this is just to show you how you can work with an API. Then here, down there, I got a post endpoint. And when I post here, I'm updating the data up here. So what I got here as a response is a status 200 data and a message down there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to deploy this application on Vercel, and I'm going to check if it is working. All right, I'm on Vercel. I deployed this application that I got here. It's totally dumb. There's nothing on it right now. But here, up here, I got an endpoint. I'm going to type /API. And look at this, here we are right now. I got just an email with a record here. So what we would like to do is to post on this endpoint from my webhook. So I'm going to get back up here. I'm going to click on create a webhook. And here I'm going to say, for instance, it's going to be new user, let's say new user webhook this way. Here we are. So I'm going to click on here. And what I'm going to do actually, I can just parse and go to the table public users, for instance, or I can go on my auth users up here. So let's say I'm going to go on auth users, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that on the events insert, down here, I want to do an HTTP request. So of course you can do update, you can do delete, etc., etc. Down here we see that I can also call a Supabase edge function, but there are a lot of other examples online to watch if you want to create a Supabase edge function. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on method post, and here I'm going to put my endpoint. Okay, I got the content type, application JSON, here we are. Okay, so actually it's not going to be a new user webhook. It's going to be, let's say, last user subscribe. That's what I want to catch, okay? I want to catch the last user that subscribe on this webhook. Okay, so here I can go down, I got my HTTP request, I'm going to post, and I'm going to click on create webhook. And here we are. So right now I got this webhook that is running, and on insert to a new user, so I can click here on edit hook. On insert on the table auth users, it's supposed to update here the data that we will get. And remember, on my endpoint, I'm going to save the data in here, in this data. I'm going to go on authentication. I'm going to add a new user to my table, and let's say it's going to be aurelia@yopmail.com, whatever. I'm going to click on invite user, and here we go. So now let's check if my application on Vercel has been called. Click on API, and look at this, here we are. I got the whole data coming from actually the user. So here it's really bad to do that, okay? Because here it's public. You should never record something like this. I should only record the email, for instance. So I'm going to I'm going to fix this right away. Right, I did an update. Up here, when I'm gonna get my endpoint, I just want to have the data.record.email, okay? So here you got the schema. It was coming from the full set of data that we had before. We don't want to deliver all the data here. All right, it's deployed. Now I'm going to add a new user, aurelia12@yopmail.com. I'm going to click on invite user, and here we've got Aurelia in the list. Now I'm getting back here. I'm going to update my endpoint, and here we are. We've got our last user, Aurelia. on my application on Vercel up here, okay? So up here, we see that I got my latest user. As we saw, we can create webhooks to trigger some operation, to trigger some calls when we insert, update, or delete any table. And this is really useful because down here we can see that we can send HTTP request, or we can call Supabase Edge function with different method, and we can give parameters to it. So webhooks are a feature that I like a lot, that I use a lot personally because I send data to a lot of other endpoints. You can imagine a lot of stuff with that. That's really useful. In this video, I'm going to show you how to self-host a Supabase instance. So basically what we can do, we can run Supabase locally. So what we will need to do is to install first Supabase to run some commands, and then we will be able to launch our Supabase instance locally. On my terminal, I'm going to type brew install, and here I'm going to type supabase/tap/supabase. I'm going to type enter, and it's going to install on my machine. Okay, it's downloading right now my Supabase package that I need, so I'm fetching Supabase. Once it's done, what I need to do is to type Supabase login. And here I need to get a token. So I'm going to open my Supabase instance. Then what I need to do is to generate a new token, and let's say it's going to be local, let's say local. I'm going to generate this new token. And here we are. So I got my token, which is here. I'm going to copy paste, get back, and I'm going to enter my token. Now when it's done, I'm going to create a new folder. So here it's going to be, for instance, my Supabase local project. Okay, I'm going to type enter. Then I'm going to enter into my Supabase local project. Then I'm going to type Supabase init. I'm going to type init, and then it's done. And what I want to do, I want to type Supabase start, okay? So I'm going to type enter, and here I'm supposed to get an error, okay? So if you get an error, what you need to do is to install Docker, because here Supabase start need to have a Docker instance to run, as you see up here. If you don't know Docker yet, it's a tool that helps you actually to run containers, to run instances of code inside your machine, okay? So we need to install Docker here, so you can install Docker desktop, or you can go more down and find the download link. Docker is used by many companies. It's a very useful tool. If you want to know more about Docker, I'll let you look online. Once you've installed Docker, you're supposed to have something like this. Back into the project, I'm going to type again Supabase, then start. I'm going to type enter. And here it's going to pull the images, and it's going to run all the containers that I need to make my instance running. So I should wait a little bit because sometimes it can take time to pull everything and to complete the whole project. But once it's done, we will get a message that our instance will be running all the time. Every time there will be Docker that will run. Okay, so it's supposed to be done. We've got several URL here, the GraphQL URL, the API, the DB URL, which is our Postgres instance. So for those who really look at where is the Postgres instance, you got it here. There is also the Studio URL. So the Studio, it's simply the dashboard made with Next.js and Tailwind that gives you access to the Supabase instance, okay? You got your anon key, you got your service role key, you got everything in here. So I'm going to open my Studio and look at this. Here we are. So we've got our local Supabase instance running. So I'm going to show you the URL here. So it's running on my local host, and I can use the default project that I got here. All right, so I'm running Supabase locally in this machine. I got my table, I got my SQL editor, I got my database with all the main features that we've got usually, the authentication, but it misses some specification here, some features that we have. It's gonna come up with time, but basically here I can run Supabase locally with the basic feature that we have on the cloud, on the app.supabase.com free instance or pro instance that you got. So when I go on Docker here, we can see that I got my Supabase local project, which is running with several different, okay, containers. So the main question now is how to migrate from local here to a Supabase instance. If you want to move all your work from here somewhere else, you can go to the guide of supabase.com, okay? The guide is on the URL supabase.com/docs/guide/CLI local development. And here you got more information. Why I'm not doing a video about this? Because there are already these guides. So here it's everything that we've done, Supabase init, Supabase start, etc., etc. And down there you got already a video about database migration, okay? So here you can look at this video if you want to migrate your database. It's not really complicated. First, you need to create a migration file by typing Supabase migration, blah, blah, blah. Then you can add the SQL to your migration file, and then you apply your migration, okay? So it's really easy to do. So imagine one day you would have a Raspberry Pi or some computer running there. You could run your own Supabase instance locally on your machine. And that's what gives me the most hope in this product. It's that Supabase gives you actually the power to have the full control, the full access on your database. Personally, I will still always use the version on the cloud because it's really efficient. I will have no maintenance to do. But at first, to test your project and to work with Supabase, I really advise you to create a free project on supabase.com. And if you want to go further, you can host your own Supabase instance on your machine. Thank you very much for following this course. Please subscribe and see you next time. Bye!